Let's take a look at club delivery of wedges. It's a hot topic. I'll try not to bore you to death, so let's get stuck into it. Don't forget, if you don't subscribe, please do so. Hit the like, hit the comment, let me know what you think of the video. Let's see what happens. Okay, so set up to go. The quad is aimed at the back flag. It's about a 35 to 40 yard shot. The line I'm going to hit from at first is quite nice. It's not quite as fluffy as this, and obviously it's not as tight as that. We're on the back of the divots. So there should be little interference. I'm going to put kind of a stock swing on it for me, which generally can be a little bit into out unintentionally and face close to path. But let's just see what kind of spin rates we get at this distance without really changing anything or having to account for the type of lie. And that struck pretty good. Right down it, slight hop left. Touch is spot on. And what do we got? We've got zero path really, zero face to path. 9.6 degrees down, and I think loft was high 40s. 45. Okay, so 55 spin loft from that lie generated a decent amount of spin. I think 6.2. That's okay. That's not too bad. Let's go with another one. Just give the face a bit of a clean. Obviously, making sure your face is spotless and immaculate. Massively important. So let's have another one. Launched at 29.5, so we're right on that magic number, funnily enough. So let's have another one. Popped up a little bit, didn't strike it as well, because that's going to release. Just short of the flag. Spinning at 44, so a big drop in spin. 8 down, 48 degrees of loft. A little bit more loft delivered, a little bit less down. Spin loft stretched out a touch. Launched at 34.5. I'm just going to take a second to point out that although the club delivery was actually very similar between the two shots, the outcome is quite different. So close on 5 degree difference in launch, quite a spin rate difference, and it wasn't down to the delivery of the club per se, it was the impact location mostly. So the second ball was 9mm higher on the club face than the first ball. So because of that, there's potentially going to be more interference if the lies are equal at all. And you're going to see a very different outcome. Now, the nice thing there is that the end outcome or the final location of the ball is actually very similar distance-wise, because it launched up a little bit, flew a bit softer, had less spin, released out a touch more, but ended up near to the hole. Okay, it might be worth noting that the loss of control of launch didn't have a negative effect on the outcome. Okay, so I'm not going to keep banging this drum and hitting the same shot over and over again. Let's have a look at how the environment changes flight. So I'm going to go forwards a little bit. We're going to go onto this little muddy area you can see. I've basically taken out the turf down to the roots. You can still see some roots of grass there, so it's pretty tight. And without changing anything, let's have a look. That last ball, by the way, spinning dead neutral, slightly into out, face slightly close to path, not enough to really curve the ball at all. So tight lie. Let's do my best to commit to the same swing. So that came out to a little bit flatter. Should have a little bit more on it. 6,500, 6.6. Very much same path. 8 down, 47 loft, 55. Spin loft again. So almost the same club delivery as 2 balls ago, but maybe a 5% increase in spin. Not huge. Let's have one more. One more stock, and then we'll start to mess around a little bit to show you what will happen if I change things. You know, where the fun begins. Ah, I've nailed that. That's gone. Ugh, had a little bit of grip. 63, didn't strike it. 6 down, 47, 53 spin loft. Very neutral delivery again, just caught it low on the face. Right, so let's have a look at a couple of things. Let's stick with this lie. And what I'm going to do, if I can find a lie that's clean enough, that should be okay if it's in the right place for the quad. It is. Let's give the face a quick wipe. So it doesn't look dirty, but it's enough to make a difference. So wet end of the towel, dry end. Clean that off a little bit. I'm going to go draw bias. So I'm going to go more into out, close the face of the path, should bring the spin loft down. And you would expect the spin rate to drop quite a bit because I'm going to start drawing it. But let's have a look. It's going to close up, going to swing into out. Going to try and hook it into that flag. Ball speed should go up, so I don't have to hit it quite so hard. You can see that really going left. Finish close to the target. What a surprise. 54, 12 degrees into out, spin loft 49, face to path 15 degrees. So that is a big old hook. So there was a loss of spin on that one, mostly down to the loss of speed, to be honest with you. I think if we look at the club speeds for those shots, just go to club data, speed, yeah, so I dropped 4 miles per hour off the speed of the club. Obviously there's going to be a spin drop. The one before was 49, balls before more close to 50, 52. So loss in speed, loss in spin, right? But it's not really the club delivery, but the lie is so clean that you're not going to lose that much spin. Okay, spin rate being a product of the quality of the lie as much as anything else. Let's go with a bit of a cut from there. See if I can ramp the spin up without doing anything crazy. I don't want to stand here and chop across it at 30 degrees. It's probably going to pop up. So I'm going to make a small adjustment and just try and cut it in there a little bit. You'd expect things to get a bit steeper, face a bit more open to path. And this tight lie, let's see if it really jumps up or not. Let's cut it in there. Now that was struck really nice. Really nice, 7,500, so picked up 1,000. Club speed the highest, 53, 9, 6 down, loft 50, hitting close on 60 spin loft. Getting close to that magic number. In all honesty, is it worth it to gain 1,000 RPM? I don't know, that's questionable. Let's give the face a clean. Let's go again, another cut. What was the path on that one? 5 degrees out to wind, face square to target. Dug a little bit, but spinning. 69, spin, 10 down, 49 loft, 59 spin loft again, 53 club speed. Very, very similar. 5 out to in, face a little bit more open on that one. So I'm not gaining that much from this kind of lie. We've gone from a draw 15 degrees right to a cut 5 degrees left, a 20 degree difference in path. Obviously the face has to be associated to the target, so a big face difference relative to the path as well. And the spin changes aren't that big. And say, right, let's go with stock shot from something a little more fluffy. Just a reminder of where we were earlier. I mean, this is slightly more fluffy than this one, so I'd expect a drop. I think more than 5,000 would be very, very good from this lie. See it launch higher. And it still had a little bit on it, but it came in steeper, remember, so it's going to grab a touch. 55 spin loft, so right where I was earlier on, 4,100 spin. So my delivery was pretty much identical to the deliveries from slightly tighter grass here. There's a bit more there, and as a result, the ball slipped up the face more. Right, so how are we going to reduce that? If I want to reduce the slip on the face, I have to bring the spin loft down. So I need to deliver less. Potentially I could be more shallow. I know I'm going to pick up some interference on the way through and see if that creates a consistent spin for me. So try and avoid the slip. So in theory, I'm going to draw this a touch just to bring that spin loft down and see what happens to the spin from this slightly more fluffy lie. Still popped a little bit. 3,200, so that didn't gain me anything. Let's get back into woolly stuff. Let's go other end, let's steepen up, let's try and cut it. So see if I can reduce interference between club and ball by cutting, probably taking a little bit of a divot. Oh! I'll tell you what, I've hit so many good shots, there was bound to be one eventually. That's just getting too steep. 12 down, 46 loft. Bottom edge, that was a problem. Let's go again. This line might be a little bit too good. Let's have a look. Jumping up again. I'll just jump in again. So the foresight, it went to 1 dot mode. So basically one of the dots on the face was concealed by some mud and dirt. And because of that, it didn't get all the parameters. It did get attack angles still. I'm just looking at it here. All the ball data is still good. Club path, fine. But as far as dynamic loft goes, face, angle, it's not going to show it because one of the dots, it couldn't see it. So it will look a little bit strange on screen, but wanted to leave it in there because it had the important attack and ball data. It's a good shot though. So 3,700 spin. And hopefully what you're taking from this, there's probably not that much value in trying to counteract the environment. You know, this is going to spin more. That's going to spin a nice amount. Once it starts to get a bit woolly, if you try and pursue spin, you start bringing risk in, you start playing shots that maybe don't fit you, maybe you won't get the result you want. So you're playing for spin at the risk of not getting it can be pretty detrimental. Let's have a look at launch angle. Okay, so we've seen 30s. I've got plenty of those on there, so we can have a look at the consistency of those 30s. I'm going to go something a little bit higher, so I'm going to try and bump it up to about 35. See if it has any effect on the outcome, my touch. 35-degree launch is what we're looking for. That's got to be 40. 44. Okay. 1700 spin, launching at 42. Here's the thing. When I do this kind of stuff, there's a realization that execution becomes quite hard. This is my 60, so I couldn't go with a higher club or higher lofted club to get the launch I'm looking for. This is it, this is all I got. Let's have another one, see if we can get 35, because those last two obviously been way too much. That is thin and gone. That's on the first tee, that's awesome.
Just going to jump in one final time. After a shot like that, I can't help myself because the club data is right there. And you can see impact 28 millimeters below the groove that I chose to put the markers on, the club head. It's obviously significantly lower than some. There have been some that have been struck down there though that have been flighted okay. Now I didn't thin that because I was too shallow, right? 6 degrees down. Had I leaned the club back, I'm delivering 50 degrees loft with a 60 and the face was cranked open a little bit of address. Highly unlikely. So my actual club delivery numbers, if you looked at them in isolation, are pretty good, but my contact point is low. It's not low because I'm too shallow, it's not low because I flipped it. It's low because the bottom of my swing is just too high, right? It was still curving down into the golf ball like it should, and it's curved up again. The shape of the swing was great. I was just too far above the surface of the ground with the circle of the swing as a whole.
I'm going to go in lower. I'm going to bring the launch down. I'm going to go 25. I think it's a bit more achievable. Outside hitting zone, perfect. Get in there. Right, we're going to go 25, trying not to kill anybody as well. So I'd expect to see a little less loft, a little more down, a little more divot action. So I quite like that. Quite enjoy it firing in. This machine's actually picking up my shoe and thinking it's a ball, so it's getting confused. Okay, there we go, 12 down, 41 degrees aloft, face close to path, 6600 spin, 23.4 launch. So that took a few balls to get. People have seen the balls before, we didn't get the numbers, but you could see they were flying pretty flat, pretty hard. Let's just get one more, launching low. Looking for that 25-ish. 26, 6,000 spin or just under. I just feel like I can fire that in and not be overly concerned with the landing spot and kind of bounce it in there, skip it in, knowing it's going to want to slow down. So what we're learning? We're learning that bringing loft down is easier. I've used the analogy of throwing a ball to a target or a ball to a person and how generally you would throw it on a kind of a flat trajectory, come out this way. And the question was asked, well, I can throw it to my target and throw it up, and yeah, well, that's good for you. You put this in your hand, you try and start to launch it higher, and it becomes more difficult to control. Now, let's just rewind a little bit and say, if you launch it higher anyway, as your stock shot, don't see that as problematic. I think maybe that's where we get to and we say, well, if you launch it at 35, you launch it at 35. The difficulty comes when you're trying to add launch to a shot, which for me personally is harder than taking launch off. And I think it would be for the majority of people. Flying it in flatter typically is easier than flying high. Like the mechanics lend themselves to striking the ball more crisply, versus adding loft lends itself to adding the ball less crisply. But if you launch it at 35, already launch it at 40 with kind of low spin. So what? Do you need to pursue 30-degree launch? Indirectly, yes, because the product is striking it better, delivering the club better, with better loft, more appropriate loft, will bring that launch down anyway, environmental conditions withstanding. So if you do get better with your wedges, you will launch it lower anyway. That doesn't mean maybe it's a pursuit that you should go after directly. Now, let it be a product of other things. Hopefully you learned a little bit about club delivery here and how varying it from different lies either makes big changes or more subtle changes. How launch is very much a product of environment, be it the ground, the ball and the club. Get any of those three off and you're going to lose consistency of launch. Now to wrap it up, I'd say one thing I have heard from one of the best wedge players of the last 20 years at least was he spent his whole career trying to take spin off the golf ball. Now that says it all to me, and it should also say to you, spin generation at a high level at least is not that important.